Hi again, here we are to continue our discussion of swapping some screens with some JavaScript. So far we've got two views here, A and B, and these are both the full size of the screen. Right now they're positioned halfway, so if I set the left position to 0, we see the red one, and if I set left to negative 100%, then we're going to see the green one. And if this is somewhere in between, like 60%, then we're going to see 60% of the green one and 40% of the red one, right? So we're going to use this property here to animate the absolute position of container, right? So before we do that, though, why don't we put a box or something in the middle of each of these screens with a link that we can click on to swap them, right? So I'm going to remove that, and we'll just concentrate on our view here on this red one, right? So what we need to do is in the HTML here, we're going to add an element inside here to act as content. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to make that a div, and let's give it a class name, call it, info or something, right? And then inside info, we'll have an anchor tag, href, right? And there we go. Now we got our anchor tag there, and we'll say, how about next, right? And so, essentially you'll see this next link. I see it up here right now, but I put this wrapper around it so we can draw like a box in the middle here, and then we'll put this link at the bottom of that box, right? Okay. And then we won't see it, but I'm going to copy this and then paste it inside this other content B right here, okay? And this one will say previous, right? So this will have a link for previous, and this will have a link for next. I'm actually going to put a hash mark in here for those links, and we won't see this one, but if we style these info boxes the same, then they should be the same. They should look the same even though we can't see the one in the green area, okay? So anyway, so there we go, right? Now, and we'll just concentrate on this, right, for right now, this red area. So what do we want to do here? Well, let's style the info box like this. We're going to say info, you are going to have a width of, and we'll just pick some numbers. How about 400 pixels and a height of, 400 pixels also, okay? So now we got a box here. You can't see it, right? So maybe we should put a background color on it. Let's say background color. And I want to make it a little bit transparent, so I'll do RGBA. And then maybe we'll make it 255, 255, 255. And so that's the red, green, and blue. And then we'll make the alpha 50%. Okay. Oh, so there's our box, right? Okay. And if you recall, our container is position absolute, and the content doesn't have a position. So the content is the red and the green box. Let's give the red box a position, the red box and the green box a position of relative. So if you recall from the first video when we talked about relative and absolute position, essentially we're going to give content, right? Both that's this div here and the other div here. We're going to give each of these position relative, and that will make each of these its own context or positioning context for its ancestors or descendants, right? Or child objects, right? So this is a child, and that would be a descendant, right? So this is going to be the context, the position context for these guys. And then this is going to be the position context for the other guys, right? Actually, you know what? Let's think about that for a minute. Why don't we do this? Let's leave that off, right? I got a better idea. Let's do this. Let's just say content, you're going to be regular like that. And then let's go to the info box. And why don't we just position it this way? Since we know it's 400 pixels, why don't we just give it a margin of auto, right? And then that should position it in the middle. And then why don't we just push it down with a little bit of margin on the top? So I'll say, how about 100 pixels? Maybe that's good, right? Maybe that's a little too much. Let's make it like 50, right? There we go, 50. Okay, so I think that'll be good for now, right? Maybe that's a little better. So we've got this, and then we should have another white box over here in the green area. So now let's grab this button, and I kind of want to put it at the bottom here. And now let's use that idea of context and relative and absolute position here, okay? So what we want to do is we want to style this anchor tag here and make it absolute position. Now, the anchor tag is an inline element by default. So we'll have to declare it as block in order to set its position. So I'm going to say info, space A. We could have given this a class name too, but I'll just style it this way with this selector, right? We'll say info A. You are going to be display block, okay? And then we'll say, how about you're going to have a width? Actually, let's do this. Let's set the box sizing property, right? You're going to have a box sizing, actually, it's got a space there, sizing of border box. Actually, it's border dash box, right? And then we'll give it a padding of 1 em and a width of 100%. And then maybe we'll get rid of the underline and make it text align center, and then maybe give it a color too, a colored fill. So let's give it, how about text decoration none. That gets rid of the underline, and then we'll say text align center, right? And then now we want to move it to the bottom. So let's give it a background color too. Let's say background color of, I don't know, let's just make it white. How about that? Right? And then now we want to stick this to the bottom edge here. So it's like a button, right? And what we can do is we can say, since we want to use the absolute and relative position, what we'll do is we'll go up to info and we'll say you are going to have position of relative. Okay, so that doesn't change anything, right? But since anchor tag is a child of info, what we can do is we can say you are going to be position absolute, right? In this case, it's not going to change anything. Normally, the width would shrink down to the width of the content, but we gave it width 100, so it has to be 100% now, right? Without this, it would have gotten smaller, but now that it's position absolute, what we can do is we can stick it to the bottom of this box by saying bottom of 0. Okay, and then there should be another one of these over on the right side here, right? Okay, so now that's pretty good. So now our last step is to add some JavaScript and a little bit of animation with our CSS. Okay, so we'll do that in the next video. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope this is working out for you.